Goeiedag and welcome to my channel. So, meet my two cats. This here is Trixie and this is Maze. I decided to build them a custom cat bed to relax in, inspired by dodecahedron designs I found online. But what started as a simple project took a very unexpected turn when I made a fundamental mistake. However, as you'll see, I transformed that mistake into the most stunning design feature of this entire build. Let's get started. I like reusing wood because it's cheap and better for the planet. This project is made from an old oak coffee table. So the first step is sawing this tabletop in 15 cm strips. Next, I resaw those strips on the bandsaw. In total, I end up with 8 boards. The smaller 2 boards I'll glue up for another project. I run all of them through the planer to give them a uniform thickness. I don't own a dedicated jointer yet, so I set up my router table to jointing mode. I do this to give all the boards a perfect mating surface for the glue up. This here is me very much out of focus, applying glue to the board's mating surface with a silicone brush. I then bring the boards together in my panel clamp to make 30 cm wide panels. I use a damp cloth to remove most of the squeeze out. This makes the cleanup later on so much easier. I end up with 3 boards that are 30 cm wide, plus that 4th one which will be for another project. These 30 cm panels are about the maximum width I can plane with this Makita planer. That's why I cut the boards to 15 cm wide earlier. Thinking ahead like this, knowing your machine limitations really pays off and helps you being efficient with your wood. I then cut the panels into 11 squares on a miter saw. In this first batch of cuts, I set the compound miter angles and give all 11 squares one side with a 108-degree angle. Next, I clamp a piece of scrap with a 108-degree angle to the miter saw, so I can accurately and repeatedly cut all 11 panels into perfect pentagons. Or so I thought. I clamped 2 offcuts to my MFT table to securely hold the panels in place while I cut the slots with my Festool domino. The dominoes are not really needed for strength, but rather to be able to align the panels later during glue up. This is one of the more challenging glue ups I've done so far, so I asked my girlfriend to help me out. Ideally, you would use slow setting glue for a glue up like this. but I didn't really have any, so we were actually racing against the clock. And this is where we created what all woodworkers know and fear: the glue clamp porcupine monster. After the glue had set, we released the dodecahedron from its prison. Unfortunately, the result was less than satisfying. The angles I cut on the miter saw were just not perfect enough, and the seams looked absolutely terrible. So I went back to the drawing board and I made a jig on the CNC to cut grooves on all edges with my hand router. The trick to being a decent woodworker is not to make no mistakes ever at all, but rather to know how to hide them and even turn them into a feature if you do happen to make one. The plan is to fill all the edge grooves I just made with a contrasting wood color. These I cut from an old staircase hand railing. I then snuck up to the exact width of the edge grooves using the planer. And here I cut all the strips to equal size on the miter saw. I CNC'd another jig so I could belt sand the strips to the required compound miter. I prefer this to using the miter saw because I can sneak up to the exact fit way better and it's safer with the belt sander. After sanding them to size, I glued all of the strips into place with an excess of glue. Clamping them down was a bit difficult in most places, so I just didn't. Luckily the narrow fit held them in place just fine. I messed up and came up short, so one edge at the back is filled with 2 pieces. Note to self, plan ahead better. I made a custom foot for my hand router so I could remove the bits of strip sticking out. This was a rather messy process, but it worked. Unfortunately, I don't have any dust collection on this router, so I had to vacuum the chips away constantly, because the top surface is also the reference surface for the foot of the router. The end result was actually quite pleasing, and it was really starting to take shape. It also made a satisfying mess that was, well, equally satisfying to clean up. I used a Japanese pool saw and a chisel to clean up the edges of the opening. I cut 4 equal strips and a 5th a bit wider on the table saw. You'll see why in a bit. I gave them the same compound miter on the belt sander as the edge strips. Now you can see how the wide strip up top transforms the opening into a subtle cat face shape. Super nice. I then glued the edge strips into place, clamping them down with just some painter's tape. Next I filled the cracks with some wood filler and I let it dry. When it was dry, I sanded off all the excess. In preparation of my least favorite part of this build, I scribed on all sides with a pencil. This makes it easy to see how much you're removing during sanding and also helps you keep track of what you've sanded already. While going through the grids on 11 similar sides, it's quite easy to lose track. After hand sanding the opening edge, it was ready for finish. As you can see, those failed edges turned into a great feature in the end. Let's take a sidestep to one of my other hobbies, 3D printing. I am medium okay at 3D drawing at this point, and I redesigned a useful model to help me with this project. These are common painting cones that you can use to finish your project. This version fits in an MFT work surface. And I redrew these and added lumps and a pointy bit at the bottom. The lumps sticking out prevent the cones from rolling. The pointy bit is used to pierce the covering material you use to keep your work surface clean. I like using garbage bag, but really any plastic or old newspapers will work. I uploaded the designs for free on printables, so if you have a 3D printer and want a few, you can just download the files and print them yourself. If you don't have a printer, just ask anyone who does have one. I'll be finishing this project with Danish oil. As a firefighter, I feel compelled to remind you that used rags drenched in oil will spontaneously combust if not disposed of properly. Read the instructions. So the last step is adding padded footing at the bottom. As the cherry on top, my girlfriend made this custom pillow, and with that, the cat bed is finally done. Now, let's see if they approve. After careful inspection, she decides to go in. I think we have approval. Her sister is interested too, but decides to come back later when it's less crowded. I hope you enjoy the final result, and if you think I deserve it, consider subscribing.